So we just welcome you to our session today. We are excited that there's so many people who are interested in learning more about how to be empowered. And Jess Irvine, again, serves as our Title IX and Equity Services Coordinator here at the College for Creative Studies. And this is Sexual Assault Prevention Month. So every year, our goal is to have passive and also active programming to allow for our community to engage in meaningful ways. Today's lecture series is entitled Empowered Engagement, Navigating Consent and Being an Active Bystander. This time, I'd like to turn it over to our wonderful speaker today, who's also going to take it away. I'm going to ensure that our screens are working appropriately. And Jess,
Yeah. All right. So hopefully the screen is there.
it is.
I think it is. Great. Okay. So I love participation. So if you have questions, comments, or you want to add anything in, please feel free to do so. I just pulled the chat up and left it on my other screen. So if I see something pop up, I'll certainly be able to answer it. So as mentioned, I am Jess. I am the Title IX coordinator for CCS. I've been with the college for a little over a year now, and it's been really great getting to interact with folks and learn more about your campus. So we're going to talk today about, being an active bystander and navigating consent. Oh, there we go. Okay, so setting ground rules first and foremost. I always love to do this just so folks understand. We're going to be talking about issues today that are prevalent among all types of individuals and communities, no matter sex or gender, sex, class, ability, or race. I fully recognize as well, though, that sometimes these discussions don't feel inclusive of everyone, but I want to make sure that everyone understands that anyone can experience violence, anyone can be an active bystander, and it's really important to keep that in mind. As you're participating today, if you choose to, please be present in our discussions and recognize and understand that everyone has different experiences. So if someone asks a question, there are no dumb questions because somebody might not be coming from a level of experience that you or others are. So I welcome any questions. Please speak from your own experiences if you share anything or you have a question about an incident. I prefer not to try to answer questions about a specific incident just because one, this is a public forum, so it's not really fair for other folks' experiences to be shared. Please just keep in mind the what happens in Vegas concept. What we talk about here should be considered safe. I don't want folks going out later and being like, oh, did you hear that thing so-and-so asked or shared? Recognizing, again, this is recorded, so I suppose someone could go and find it, but just, try to be respectful of any of the discussions we have and take care of yourself. So while we're talking about taking care of yourself, we're going to talk about topics that anything can be activating of emotions for anyone, right? I could say one phrase that for you that activates an emotion that was completely unintended or wasn't expected. I don't plan to be, talking about any examples and scenarios in a way that is intended to be activating, but you just never know. So if for some reason you feel like our discussions are causing any type of anxiety for you, there's different ways that you can ground yourself so that you can still stay present during the presentation if you'd like to, without having to step away. So there's a few examples on the screen. Typically, my favorite is fidgeting, mostly because I'm just a fidgeter in general anyway, but there's other options here if you feel the need to kind of like bring yourself back to what we're talking about and what the discussion is. So just keep that in mind as we're talking. Also, if you have to hop off because you feel like this is just a conversation that's not great for you, you're more than welcome to also just sign off. I'm not offended and I totally understand. Okay, so first and foremost, what is an active bystander? So a bystander is a person that's present at an event or incident, but does not act, right? So some really good examples that I can think of for bystanders is maybe you see a person broken down on the side of the road, right? And if that person is broken down on the side of the road, it's pretty unlikely that folks are going to call the police and just say like, hey, there's a disabled vehicle on the side of the road. That because we are assuming that person has a cell phone, that person's called someone else. Maybe someone else has already called the police, right? So that's being a bystander, is that we're there, but we don't do anything about it. An active bystander is a person who witnesses something and then takes steps to either speak out or do something about the incident, right? So similar situation that we're talking about, you know, if you see a vehicle disabled on the road, maybe you see an actual car accident in progress. It's likely that most folks will call 911 to say, I just witnessed a car accident and there might be people injured or there might be people in need of help. So that's being an active bystander. We want all members of the community to be active bystanders, right? We don't want anyone to assume anything and say, oh, someone else will call, or oh, they're probably fine, or oh, I might be misreading it. We want you to be active. We want you to step up. We want you to say something, because there are many circumstances where if everyone's assuming that someone else is taking care of it, then it's likely not happening. But while we're thinking about being, you know, bystanders, there's lots of challenges and barriers to doing so, right? There could be the personal barrier of being introverted. Maybe you're just a person that's like, I don't really like talking to people. I don't really want to get involved in that. There could also be this fear of not wanting to get involved. Maybe you're questioning if it's safe for you to get involved. There could also just be an uncertainty in being, I don't want to embarrass myself by going up to someone and saying something and then realizing the situation's totally fine. There's also the barrier of relationships, right? You don't want to upset your friends. If you see a couple arguing and it's your friends and you say something to them to like try to diffuse the situation, you don't want your friends to be upset with you for like getting involved or something. You don't want to break an unspoken code of trust in a group. So maybe it's, standard and normal for a group of individuals to be doing something that they think is funny. And if you say something, then, you're the fun sucker, like you're being lame, whatever. And then there's also just social pressure, right? Like there's always the pressure when you're around a group of people to kind of be the outlier and say like, I don't think this is the right way to go about this. In general, this goes back to what I was talking about. There's, other people around, someone else will deal with it. And then the idea of like, well, if no one else is concerned, then it's probably not that big of a deal. Again, I think it's really important to challenge yourself to get through these barriers sometimes, because it's easier to be embarrassed for 5 or 10 minutes or roll your eyes if someone's saying like you're being lame, than to not do something and then later find out like, oh, I wish I had known that this was going on so I could step in. So 3 steps in being an active bystander, right? Identify what the concern is. Look at it and look at it from the situation of, this looks like a problem. So a really good example of a situation I worked through a couple years ago was I was out with some friends and we were at a bar and there was this couple where I couldn't tell that if they were in an intimate relationship or not, but the one individual kept putting his hands on the other person and kept being like grabby, and she kept kind of pushing his hands away. And I was like, I can't tell if this person is like trying to like flirt with this person and they like it or they don't like it. They're not really smiling. So I identified my concern there. From there, I formed a goal. And my goal was to make sure that this person was okay, right? Because I wouldn't like it if someone was doing that to me. This person seemed really uncomfortable. So I formed the goal of checking in with that person. So then I took an action step, and my action was to go up to them and ask if they were okay. Before I did that, I pointed something out to my friends that were with me, and I was like, hey, that's concerning, right? So we assessed safety. My friends kind of stood back and watched to make sure that, like, if the person that I was going up to was going to get angry or something, there was a backup plan. And then also, were the other people going to be safe? There were a lot of people around. So for me in that situation, it felt like yes. So the action item is I went up to the individual and I said, like, hey, are you okay? Or whatever. And the girl actually, the woman looked at me and goes, yes, this is my boyfriend. He's just trying to be funny. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I just want to make sure you were okay. You kept like smacking their hands away and, you looked like you were frustrated. And she was like, I really appreciate you doing that. No one's ever done that for me before. And it means a lot. I think it was also a reality check for the partner because he realized like what the outsiders looking in were seeing. And it was kind of like oh, I probably shouldn't be doing this. So 3 easy steps. But if in the example I just gave, those steps aren't going to work, there's other ways, right? So I like to call it the 3 Ds of having action items. So the action item I just described was a direct action. Walked right up to the person. I asked if they were okay. They said yes, and we moved forward. Let's say in the situation I just described, though, that maybe it didn't seem safe. Maybe there was something about it that I was like, ooh, I don't want to get involved. You could do a delegation action. Delegation means you seek out someone else to do the check-in. Maybe you have a friend that's willing to, maybe you want to reach out to an RA, maybe you call public safety, right? Like you find someone else to take action to check in on what's going on. So that's delegating the matter. And then distracting. So distracting is always really good in situations that maybe you're noticing that it's escalating and you're concerned. So maybe you're at a party and you see a couple of people arguing and you're worried about them, or maybe you're at a party and you see someone like trying to dance with someone and the person doesn't want to be dancing with that person. You could always go up and distract the situation. Hey, I really have to go to the bathroom. Can you go with me? Or I'm starving. Can we leave? I really want to get out of here. You could also just like blame yourself in that situation with distracting and be like, I don't feel good. We need to go. Like, I need someone to walk me home. Right. So you're taking different steps depending upon what's best for you and the other people involved to make sure that you're being an active bystander and you're interfering in some way and offering support to someone. So when you're helping other people, please, please, please remember your safety is important. Where I am not in any way encouraging you to put your safety at risk. There's lots of other ways that we can help folks without engaging in situations where our safety becomes compromised. If you're ever feeling unsure, loop in other people or call in college support so that we can help, right? Our RAs are trained to be supportive. Our public safety staff are trained to be supportive. And even if you call those folks and feel like it was nothing, at least you called and said something and found out it was nothing instead of calling and doing nothing and finding out it would like the situation actually was something. And then the last is a little acronym that's always good. So believe, listen, affirm, believe. So if someone says to you, that person's being really creepy and they're making me feel uncomfortable, believe them, right? Everybody comes from different walks of life. So what's creepy to someone else might not be creepy to you, and that's okay. So you believe them, listen to what they're saying to you, affirm that they have a right to feel that way, and then continue to believe them and help them in any way that's possible. So quickly, I just want to go through your resources on campus. So you have 2 resources specifically on campus that are considered your confidential resources. So these are resources that if an incident happens and you're in need of support, you can go to Wellness and Counseling Services, and that office is specifically confidential. So if you go talk to a counselor, you're able to share what you need to share without fear that someone else is going to find out about it. So the Title IX coordinator, me, is not notified if you disclose something in Wellness and Counseling Services. If you're ever in need of medical services and support, you can also reach out to your medical services for health, and they are also required to keep anything you disclose to them confidential. So they're not required to contact me and let me know or anything like that. If you do decide that you want help, though, beyond confidential resources, you can always contact me as the Title IX coordinator, Dan Long, your Dean of Students, and Dr. D, Deirdre Young. Faculty and staff in general are also required to report anything if you report to them, but these are your folks on campus that have been specifically identified as individuals that can support you and know our policies and procedures forwards and backwards so that they can get you to the right resources to get you support as you need it. Okay, so before we get into the consent piece, I just want to make sure folks understand Title IX and sexual misconduct terms. Some of you may have heard that the Department of Education just released new regulations under Title IX. So the college is going to be in the process of updating all of our policies and procedures this summer. So you're going to hear a lot more about this again later. But right now, current policy and procedure has an overarching term, kind of think of as an umbrella, of sexual harassment. And under sexual harassment are a bunch of different behaviors that classify as a violation of policy. So sexual harassment is, harassment of another person based on their sex or gender. And it can be visual, it can be verbal, it can be physical, right? But then below sexual harassment, but under the same umbrella, is sexual assault, stalking, and relationship violence. So if you hear me refer to something as sexual harassment or sexual misconduct, I'm referring to lots of different behaviors that can occur. But it's just because right now, the way that the policies and regulations are set up is it's an umbrella term. Okay, so quick disclaimer before I show this video. People enter college with a different level of experiences across the board. The video I'm about to show you, it talks about consent in a quote unquote fun way, right? Like, I completely acknowledge that and understand that. It is not making light of consent and the importance of consent, but it's a really good way to think of consent outside of the sexual and intimate way of things, and just more about consent in general when you're interacting with other people. So again, please don't feel like this is minimizing the importance of consent. It's just really important. It's another important and good way for us to look at consent and understand it. So hopefully it plays. Was that working, Deirdre? Did you hear it click on? Or Evan, I see both of you there. I don't know if you can tell me if it's working. I hope it's working for the screen. So as we hit play, also keep in mind, this is from a school in Canada, but like the concept is really funny and it's a little bit cute and it's a little bit different than the T video. So just keep that in mind that when they say Canada, it's Canada. And hopefully this works for everyone. So I'm hearing there's no sound. Let me mute myself and try again. Sorry. Okay, well, I'm really sorry. It sounds like the video is not working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the video out later and ask you to go ahead and watch it. Like I said, it's a really great video to talk about consent in general. like I said, taking out the sexual context of it and everything. So I'm really sorry that it's not working. Did you click on the share button when you share the screen?
Jess, this is Deirdre.
Hi.
So the sound.
Yeah, it sounds like the sound for the
So
video
I
is
want
not.
you to go up to the very top.
Mhm.
It should kind of be green at the top, and then go to options, like at the top of the Zoom screen, and then you got to hear share sound.
Okay, hold on one second. Sorry.
So you'll kind of see like a green icon looking thing, and then you'll see options on the far right-hand side. And then scroll down, the fifth one down is share sound.
Oh, okay. Sorry, folks. Hold on one second. I'll restart it. Okay. So share. Okay. Share sound. Hopefully this works now.
It should be in the Zoom screen.
Sound like a bike ride.
Yes.
If you wanted to go on a bike ride with someone, you'd say, "Hey, I'd like to go on a bike ride with you." And they'd be like, "Hey, I'd like to go on a bike ride with you." Boom. Put on your helmet, kid. You're going on a bike ride. You might hear things like, "This feels great," or "Keep going." These are ways you know they're enjoying the bike ride. Maybe not those ones. If they said no, then that's that. They do not want to go on a bike ride with you. You don't toss them up on a bike and say, "Oh, come on, it'll be fun." No is no. And if they don't say anything at all, it's still a no. The absence of a yes is a no. They could say, "Heck yeah," or, I might want to. And you put on your biker shorts, get the bike, grab the helmets, and in that time, they decided that they don't want to and start to backpedal. And that's okay. They aren't obligated to go on that bike ride. You'll just have to bike on your own. Oh, and being dressed in bike shorts and a helmet doesn't automatically mean someone wants to ride a bike. It's quite presumptuous to think they do. Even if you happen to be in a relationship with your bike partner, you have to ask each and every time. Say your bike partner has had a couple of drinks, and we're not talking about water. They're not ready to go for a bike ride, even if they've told you they are. A drunk yes is not a sober yes, and by law, you need a sober yes. Oh, and just because you bought them drinks all night, it does not entitle you to a bike ride with them. Same rules apply if they're unconscious. Conscious people can't ride bikes, and they definitely can't say yes to doing so. The number one priority is to make sure they're safe. Even if they're just sleeping, they can't say yes to a bike ride. And it can be a scary thing to wake up and find yourself on a bike. Imagine your boss telling someone, "You can only work here if you bike with me to work." That's crossing the line. It would be an abuse of power for a boss or a person of influence to suggest such a thing. And just because someone wanted to go for a bike ride once, doesn't mean they'll want to every time. Maybe it was just a one-bike stand. You can't say, "What are you talking about? We biked last night." You're simply not entitled to another bike ride if they don't want to. Maybe your fellow cyclist is totally cool with biking on paved roads. That does not mean that they are up for extreme mountain biking. You're not going to insist that they go speeding down a mountain with you if they are only interested in paved roads. That's uncomfortable territory, and you don't want to pressure your bike partner, do you? What if Alex here told you that Taylor really wants to ride bikes with you? Does that mean you throw Taylor up on a bike and say, "All right, let's start pedaling"? No. The only person that could say Taylor wants to go for a bike ride is Taylor. When all is said and done, riding a bike with someone should be fun, memorable, and hey, maybe a bit sweaty. But it can only be that way when everyone involved has willingly agreed to participate. So whether it's having sex or bike riding, consent is key.
Okay. So like I said, this is from an institution in Canada. So it's very similar to the,
Only one in 3
take the sound back off, it'll stop for you the same way that you did it before.
Thank you.
You can enable sound. It's okay. It is okay. We're here to help.
Mother's Day gift, a basket from Harry and David.
So go back up to share sound, Jess, and then hit disable.
Order it, and it's sent right to the door. I know that all the moms in your life do it.
Think about consent.
Wow. Sorry, folks. Let me turn my share sound.
Spread love the daily harvest way and tell us what you're into. So in turn, we can give you more of what you'll like. Gosh, that's good. Really good fruits and veggies. Now loading. Get started today at
Or
dailyharvest.
you may want it just advanced in your PowerPoint to the next slide too, and just hit slide share.
There we go. Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, folks.
So if you think you've never seen it,
But you probably still have to close out that YouTube because we may still pick up sound. Or you can go back up to the top, right-hand side options, and disable computer share sound.
Sorry, folks. Anyway, okay. So thank you for your patience with me. And
you're amazing.
I don't think I've ever had that issue before with sound. Okay. So there's a couple things I wanted to just specifically address really quickly with that video, because there is one piece in there that sticks out that is a little different for our campus. So there's a point in there where it says the only way that consent is possible is if both parties are completely sober. While yes, that is the absolute best way to get consent from someone is if they are sober and are, fully aware of their faculties and abilities. It is not the law in Michigan that folks have to be 100% sober. Again, strongly encourage that folks go that path and only interact with individuals when there's, sobriety there. But I think the biggest barrier for when we're talking about consent and incapacitation is the idea that if a person is appearing blackout or you've been around them and you've seen them consume a very high level of alcohol in any way, lots of shots, maybe they drank 5 drinks in an hour, maybe they smoked marijuana or used another type of drug. Those are signs that it is likely not a good idea to engage in some type of intimate interaction with another person or persons. So please just keep that in mind, that that's the one little caveat with that video that sticks out. But otherwise, in general, if we're thinking about consent and we're thinking about the concept of consent about it completely changes our thought process in it, right? If a person said earlier in a text message, can't wait to hook up with you later, and then later that night they're I don't know if I'm in the mood. It's not, well, you said over text 3 hours ago that you were into this. So it's important to remember that. And then if there's questions ever of am I being pushy or not, think of it outside of the context of an intimate relationship, right? And would I pressure someone to engage in handing me their cell phone if, they didn't want to share their cell phone? Or would I push a person to go ride a bike if they said they weren't really into the idea of riding a bike, right? So that's a really good way to kind of help remove the confusion sometimes. So, okay, so hoping folks are willing to participate a little bit here. And if you're just willing to throw in the chat, what does a healthy romantic relationship look like to you? Okay, so I'm seeing good communication. Yes, that's really helpful. So good communication, let's kind of expand on good communication a little bit. So good communication is explaining to a partner, saying hey, earlier today when you made that joke, it actually kind of hurt my feelings and it made me feel XYZ way. If a person responds and says something to the effect of well, I was just joking, or why can't you take a joke? there's really good ways to respond to that with a person of saying like, yeah, I understand that you thought it was funny, but I didn't, right? And that for me is real. And it activated this emotion, or it made me feel a certain way about this because it brought back, when someone used to make fun of me about that when I was a child, or whatever the case may be. But helping someone understand and communicating with them why something has bothered you is a really good way to communicate and let partners know what our boundaries are. I see another one: respect, laughter, comfort. Yeah, so respect is huge. I think that this is a really important discussion to have with partners consistently, because we all view respect differently, right? So kind of going back to what we were talking about with communication, and if someone makes a joke, that joke to you is maybe disrespectful, but to that person, it was truly a joke. So it's really important to clarify what respect means to you, because everybody comes from different walks of life and different backgrounds. And if you don't understand what that person expects and considers respect or disrespect, then there's going to be a breakdown in communication. There's going to be a breakdown in trust. Laughter and comfort, yes, that's huge. You want a partner that's going to be able to provide support to you, make you laugh if you're feeling down, and provide comfort to you if you're going through something hard. That goes back to communication though, right? What brings you comfort versus what brings someone else comfort is very different. So a really good example, and I'm sharing examples from my own personal life, but my partner, when he's upset about something or he's feeling sad or down, the level of comfort he needs from me is kind of just leave him alone. And I typically will say, if and when you're ready to talk, I'm here, but I'm not going to push you. So like, just know I care, but I'm not going to push you. And that's what works for him. He likes to kind of process things on his own terms. And then maybe an hour later, maybe 2 days later, maybe even a month later, he brings up something that was bothering him. So it's important to recognize where people get their comfort from and what's important for them. There's also an addition of appropriate pace. Yes, this is also really important, right? Just because we're in an intimate relationship with someone doesn't mean that we immediately need to be intimate on all different levels. It doesn't mean that we need to be sharing our deepest, darkest thoughts and secrets. It means that we are going to go through this relationship with what's comfortable for the other party. Again, goes back to communication, right? And explaining to someone why maybe you're not ready or willing to meet their family or introduce them to your family, or maybe you're not ready and willing to take a trip with them or have them spend the night in your room with you. And if a person respects that and they want to be in the relationship with you, then they're going to, work through that with you to figure out what's mutually agreeable. So the next question: what are some signs of an unhealthy relationship? What are some things that stand out as being unhealthy? Feel free to throw your thoughts in the chat. And if you're uncomfortable posting it in the chat, you're always welcome to send it directly to me and I can kind of read it out. Lack of respect for boundaries. Yeah, so that's a really great example, right? So we talked about earlier we're talking about setting boundaries and saying, I'm not comfortable when you make jokes about X, and then the person continues to do it. That sure is a sign of being unhealthy, because that person is not looking at you and saying, like, this is my partner, we're equals, and that I care about the different things that they're going through or what they've set up as a boundary for me. Lack of alignment. So lack of alignment in our values. Maybe some of us really value celebrating certain holidays and that person doesn't agree with that. Or maybe it's really important that on, quote, school nights that we go to bed at a certain time, but the partner doesn't think that makes sense and wants to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, which is then keeping you up till 2 o'clock in the morning. So lack of alignment of what you want out of the relationship. That's also ties in really closely with, are we mutually agreeing to be in this relationship without like seeing other people? And are we agreeing that we're not, or gonna talk to other people or be on dating apps still or anything like that? So being aligned on what is actually expected out of the relationship. Manipulation and lying. Yeah, so those two are really important to remember. So if folks have a disagreement and the person somehow finds a way to flip it on you, right? So maybe it's saying, hey, it really bothered me when you didn't answer my calls for an entire day. And the person says, yeah, well, it really bothers me when you do this, right? And flips the script instead of addressing the actual matter at hand. There's really good ways to address that, right? There's a good way to say to someone like, hey, totally understand that it bothers you when I don't, pick up my dirty laundry and I leave it around all day until it's laundry day. Can we talk about that after we talk about the fact that you ignored my phone calls for an entire day and it made me feel worried and concerned for your safety and well-being? So it's recognizing when, maybe someone's trying to project a conflict back on you and just finding a way to calmly respond and say, what you're upset about is also really valid. Can we talk about this and then talk about that? Lying, of course, right? We can't respect and trust someone if they're lying to us and not being honest. Disdain, unbalanced power dynamics, and lack of kindness. So unbalanced power dynamics are really important and to think through. And that's why, the college has a policy where faculty and staff should not be dating students. And, students that might be supervising other students should be disclosing that they're dating each other, because there's this power dynamic there, right? And this perception that, my job or something else is going to be impacted based on those power dynamics. There's also other ways that power dynamics and perceptions of power dynamics can come into play. So it's really important that if there are perceived power dynamics, for instance, one partner makes more money than the other partner, that could feel like a power dynamic because one partner can't contribute as equally financially. So how do you discuss that to understand, like, how are we going to manage money effectively when we go out on dates or when we are buying something that we're both going to use to ensure that, there doesn't feel like one person has the, quote, upper hand. We kind of talked a little bit about gaslighting. So gaslighting, for folks that don't know, is this idea of when someone will say, like, someone will bring up something that's bothering them, and then the person that is receiving that information finds a way to kind of like flip the script again and convince you that you were actually in the wrong, when in your heart you knew you weren't wrong and that you were truly experiencing something that was hurtful to you. Some other signs of behaviors that could be towing the line of being unhealthy. So I know lots of folks probably do this. I do it as well. Location sharing, right? So if you share your locations with your partner, that's fine, right? Unless it starts to become an area where our boundaries are being violated. So if I tell my partner, I'm running to Target to make a return, but then on my way home from Target, I decide to stop at Bath and Body Works to get some candles or something. And he texts me and goes, you said you were going to Target. Why are you at Bath and Body Works now? You were supposed to be home 20 minutes ago. That's a sign of distrust, and also tracking me in a way that doesn't feel respectful of my boundaries. So it's important to kind of keep those pieces in mind too, of just those small behaviors that we do with our friends and our partners, to make sure that there's boundaries set up ahead of time, and that we understand, like, yes, I'm sharing my location with you, but it doesn't mean you get to question my every move and everything I do. Okay, so lastly, I would love to just hear some folks' thoughts on dating violence. So let's take what is dating violence, but outside of the physical harm that that would be dating violence. So what else could be perceived as dating violence? Yeah, so Ellen's example of gaslighting is a really great example of that could be an example of dating violence, right? Like someone that's constantly manipulating you and making you think that your feelings aren't valid. Verbal aggressions, yes, a person that's calling you stupid or dumb or, any other type of, words to put you down or make you feel poorly about yourself, that can be a form of dating violence. Dating violence doesn't just have to be physical violence against another person. Withholding access to funds is another great example, right? So we talked a little bit about like if one partner makes more than the other, if someone says, I'm not letting you have money for this unless you do this, or they're just completely abusing the financial resources, that would be a form of violence. Separating the partner from their family and friends is also huge, right? So there are scenarios where the person's like, I can't believe you want to go out and have a girls' night or a guy's night and leave me home alone. What am I supposed to do while I'm home alone? And then you start to feel guilty and you stop spending time with your friends or family. So those are signs of dating violence when a person is, engaging in behaviors that kind of start separating you from your normal life. Being in a relationship does not mean your life is the relationship. It means that you are in a relationship and you're in a partnership because it brings you both joy, but that you're also doing things on the outside that bring you joy and activities. Great example, my husband's a golfer. I have no interest in golf. I swear up and down, he asks me all the time to go golfing with him. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go golfing. That's fine though, right? Like he has his hobby that brings him lots of joy. We're in a relationship, but I also have my own hobbies that bring me a lot of joy that he doesn't like to participate in, like getting pedicures, for example. He has no interest in that. Totally fine. So it's important to remember that if a partner starts separating you from your activities or taking you away from things that bring you joy, that there's some boundary setting that needs to come up so that you can get yourselves back in a healthier pattern. Okay, so setting boundaries, it can be really hard and it can be really uncomfortable sometimes. So let's just kind of start out with this idea of there's someone on campus who creeps you out. They're not really doing anything wrong per se, but they're making you feel creepy, like they're being creepy. They've asked you out a few times. You've said you're busy, right? You tried to give the subtle, like, go away, and it's not working. How can you communicate a boundary that you're not interested? And feel free to throw it in the chat. Yes, firm and direct language is huge. Thank you, Kristen. So outwardly saying to that person, thank you so much for expressing interest in me. I am not interested in going out with you. I am not interested in being in a relationship, or I am in a relationship, or whatever the case may be. If you're interested in being friends with that person, totally fine saying that to them. I'm more than happy to be your friend, or I'm more than happy to be your study partner, but I don't want to spend time outside of X. I know it can feel like you're being mean to someone by doing that, but if they're not picking up your subtle cues by constantly saying, I'm busy, then a direct response to them is likely the best way to help that person feel like, okay, now it's clear. And if they then are still not respecting your boundaries, that's when you can start to loop in the college to help provide support to you and make sure that, we're helping this person understand, or we're establishing boundaries more through the college directives. Are there any other ideas of a phrase or something you could say to set a boundary with someone? Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat, and that's totally fine. I think some other ways that you could set boundaries with folks if you're maybe uncomfortable with being as firm and direct is you could block that person, right? Like you could just go that way and do, ghosting. That's not something I personally suggest and recommend, but I know folks do that. You could also bring it up to a friend that maybe is a mutual friend and just say like, hey, this person's making me feel uncomfortable. Can you have a conversation with them? Again, you could ask the college. Just because you ask us for help does not mean that we're like going to jump into action and charge this person with policy violations and kick them out of school. I have lots of educational conversations where I can say to someone like, listen, you're making, you're consistently asking people out, or you're sending text messages that feel a little bit over their boundary lines, and you might want to roll it back a little bit and explain to them what that means. So it's also okay to delegate, like I said, and ask other folks for help. So how to help if you're in a situation where maybe someone's talking to you about their concerns, maybe they've experienced some type of harm. Continue to give the person control that's experienced that harm, right? That is the biggest thing you could do, is saying to them, like, I'm here to support you and I'm here to help you. Let's talk through what your options are. So, just like now, I've asked you some questions and you've thrown out ideas. Same thing for this person. Well, you could use firm and direct language. Have you blocked them yet? Like, what else can I do to set a boundary with this person? But let that person decide how they want to set those boundaries. Also ask if they're okay, right? I mean, if they're disclosing something to you, they're likely feeling a certain way and they're looking for some type of support. If they're not okay, help them get to their resources and offer them what their reporting options are, and get some access to support. It's really important not to tell the person what to do, though, right? Because it's their situation and it's their experience, and what you might do is very different than what they would typically do. And if you tell them to do something one way, they have to live with the feelings and the consequences that come with that. So it's important to give them that control and let them guide the path of how they want to do something. Now, if you're truly concerned for someone's safety and well-being, it's okay to say that to them. And then it's also okay to reach out to someone at the college to help and see if we can offer meetings and support to that person to offer and talk through that. But if a person's just saying like, oh, this person's being really creepy, I don't know what to do, or my partner and I keep fighting about X, and you're not concerned for their safety, these are some really important steps to take. So if a person does end up coming through the college for support, we can provide a lot of different supportive measures. So supportive measures at the college are determined on a case-by-case basis, and they're generally not punitive. So if someone comes to us and says, oh, this person that lives, on the same floor as me is constantly stopping by my room and it's making me uncomfortable, can you move them to a different floor? Typically, no. And the reason for that is because it's considered punitive. However, we have lots of other options of support that we can provide folks so that they feel like, we're doing something to make them feel more comfortable on campus. One, we can move the person that is feeling uncomfortable. We can get them connected with counseling services. We can issue something called a no contact directive. No contact orders are not restraining orders, though. So we can't say you must stay 500 feet away from so-and-so, and you can't be in the same building with them or anything like that. It is a very clear directive that you and the other party cannot interact with each other on any terms. We can also provide academic support. So if there's, behavior that's starting to impact you or someone academically, we can provide support that way. We can also work to modify work and class schedules. So if we're thinking about, oh, I work with this person and I have to see them every day during our shift, I can work with, you and the employer to get you into different shifts. And then if absolutely necessary, we can talk about leaves of absence. But these are some of the different supportive measures we can provide on campus to help someone if they're going through a challenging situation and need to talk about it. So real quickly, I know we're running out of time. So what happens when a report comes in? It's important to understand that. So when we initially get a report, myself or Dr. D reaches out to provide resources, options, and just understand a little bit more about what's going on. We also talk about the supportive measures I talked about on the last page. We also talk about your options. So we have a couple different options that are available. We have an informal resolution, and then we have an investigation option. With informal resolution, you can think of it kind of like mediation, except you're never in the same room as that person, right? It's me shuttling back and forth between you and the other party to provide some type of plan of action going forward that's mutually agreeable for everyone involved. So sometimes, you know, folks want it to be really specific. Like the most common example I use is like every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I want to be in the gym from 8 to 9 a.m. and I want to know they're not going to be there. If both people can agree to that, great. And then we move forward with it. So sometimes it's really specific like that. Sometimes it's more, we're going to work with the Title IX coordinator every semester at class registration to make sure we're not put in the same classes, right? That's a little more general and vague, but we work with it. If a person chooses to go through the more formal process of an investigation, then we identify someone to serve as an investigator. Investigators conduct interviews and they gather evidence. Everybody at a point in the process has an opportunity to review the evidence and provide a response. Following that, we move to what's called a hearing. And in the hearing, there's a decision maker that determines whether or not a policy has been violated. If a policy has been violated, then a finding is made. Excuse me. A finding is made, and then a sanction is issued. So if a person's found responsible for a policy violation, we then issue a sanction. And then there's always opportunities for an appeal if, you know, we go through the formal process and someone, you know, disagrees with the outcome. We have very specific grounds for appeal, but both parties have the right to appeal if they want to. All right, so that is almost done with our time, but I wanted to leave opportunity for questions. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. You're more than welcome to send them, like I said, directly to me in the chat, or you're also welcome to just put them in the chat to everyone if you're comfortable with that, whatever's best for you. Not seeing any questions coming in, so.
No. Lots of thank yous, Jess. Lots of thank yous.
I love it.
So everyone, this is going to be uploaded onto our DEI lecture series on our internet. Once we get a chance to make sure we upload everything and have closed captioning available for those who were not able to attend. Thank you so much, Jess, for being with us and supporting us as we navigate these important topics here at the College for Creative Studies. Thank you for all of our participants. Thank you for your patience today. And as always, if you have any questions for us, please feel free to reach out. Title9@ccsdetroit.edu, diversity@ccsdetroit.edu, or just give us a call. We are available to you. So thank you for all that you do, Jess, and thank you for all of our CCS employees and other community members for all that you do to keep our community safe. Until we see each other again, may everyone be safe. Thank you.
Bye-bye.